Hello, welcome to the Boot Room. Andy, Warren, Stuart Watson here to look ahead to Ipswich Town's League One clash away at Oxford. A clash away at Oxford, Stu, that comes hot on the heels of a frustrating home draw with Plymouth Argyle, the League One leaders, but also on the red hot heels of another Ipswich Town signing. So, some real excitement and plenty to talk about heading into a big game.
Yes, 3 draws in a row now for Ipswich, 3 wins from their last 10 in the league, which is nowhere near the points tally you need for automatic promotion. It's left Ipswich playing a little bit of catch-up with Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday. Still a long way to go yet, still 60 points to be contested for, but no doubt about it, Ipswich need to get back to winning ways sooner rather than later.
They do. The League One promotion gap in the promotion races, they kind of stayed as they were to Plymouth. Sheffield Wednesday stretched things out a couple more points last weekend, but Town, while they don't need to win this game, nothing will be ended, nothing will be defined if they don't. 3 points is going to be really important here, just to keep tabs on those teams and keep things tight, but just as much for momentum purposes, to build some headway. To get Ipswich Town motoring again, because it feels like this team is capable of going on a big run of results, but we need to see it.
We do, yeah. I don't think there's been back-to-back wins in the league since October time now. So as much as Ipswich have been pretty consistent in bouncing back from frustrating results this season, we need to see that 3, 4, 5 game winning streak at some stage. I'm sure of it for Ipswich to get themselves right back in those top 2 positions. All eyes on that Sheffield Wednesday game at Portman Road coming up in February. I think it's really important Ipswich get themselves into a good place heading into that game.
A ruthless streak, please, Ipswich Town. I want to see a ruthless Ipswich Town in a few games in the next few weeks. Oxford, though, to me at least, don't feel like an opponent that I would necessarily want Town to be facing this weekend. They're a team that have historically frustrated Ipswich in League One, even though they're going into it having beaten them 3-0 on their own pitch at Portman Road less than a month ago. I still feel like this is a really, really tricky one. Town won 3-0 on Boxing Day, but I don't think anybody should be under the impression that this is going to be a similarly easy ride.
We've spent all this week talking about Ipswich dropping points from winning positions and conceding late goals after that Barley Mumba goal at Portman Road. Well, Oxford last season was a last-minute heartbreak, wasn't it? Luke McNally cancelling out St Selina's opener, and I think that was the day really that the playoff dreams died for Ipswich Town. That hope that Kieran McKenna might put together a late charge just petered away that day. Very few goals between the teams in League One heading up to Boxing Day. And in the end, Ipswich ran out comfortable 3-0 winners. But that was a challenging first 15, 20 minutes or so. Kieran McKenna admitted as much afterwards.
Certainly was. It certainly was. They managed to stamp on Oxford after scoring the first goal in that game. And I feel like the first goal of this game could be really important, particularly for settling some nerves, which... I don't think Ipswich aren't a team to show nervousness. They're normally a pretty upfront and honest, confident team, but there will come a point where losing leads and people talking about losing leads is gonna have some kind of impact. But I'd love it. I'd love Ipswich to score the first goal of this game.
I would love it.
Yeah, you thought I was going Keegan, didn't you? Maybe it was a little bit, but I'd love them to score the first goal of this game, and I'd love them to hold on to that lead from then onwards. That would be what I would order up from the playbook for Ipswich this weekend. Whether they're able to do that or not, I don't know. They may need to show some resilience and maybe come from behind and gain some points from a losing position. That wouldn't be too bad either. But
I don't care how they do it, Andy. It's they just need to win, don't they? But you're right, it's not going to be easy against an Oxford side that has been in and around the playoffs for the last 3 years under Carl Robinson. They're mid-table at the moment, but they were 10 unbeaten going into that game at Portman Road. They've won a couple of games since then, including a win against Fleetwood last weekend. Lots of championship experience in that squad. Some very highly rated younger players in people like Elliot Moore and Cameron Brannigan as well. So I don't think we should just be looking at that Boxing Day result and thinking, yeah, this will be fine for Ipswich. This is a challenge.
It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that's on Ipswich. I think obviously the opposition is incredibly relevant in every game that you play, but this Ipswich team are good enough to beat anybody in any given week in this division. And that's certainly been highlighted by their work in the transfer market this week, which, as we all know now, has seen Harry Clark come in another 7-figure deal for a highly rated young player from a Premier League club, this time coming from Arsenal. Kieran McKenna said he's good to go immediately. And then this is the bit, Stu, where we talk about whether he should be given a starting spot immediately.
Well, he's a little bit different to Hurst and Broadhead, who ultimately didn't start in the game against Plymouth. But Hurst, who came on for a late cameo, had started very few games of football for Blackburn in the first half of the season. So maybe there was a feeling he just wasn't quite sharp enough to go straight in from the start. Nathan Broadhead was a little bit different, had played plenty of games for Wigan, but has got a few injuries on his CV. Had been going backwards and forwards from his home in Wales, getting himself settled in Suffolk, had reported a bit of muscle tightness. So understandably, Ipswich kind of wrapped him up in cotton wool last weekend. Harry Clark's a little bit different. He's a Suffolk boy. He's coming back to his hometown. I'm sure he'll be staying with family. So the off-field disruption isn't quite the same for him. And on-field, he's been starting most weeks for Stoke of late. So should be ready to hit the ground running, whether it's this game or whether it's Morecambe at home on Tuesday night, in which he starts, remains to be seen.
Yeah, it does, and we're anticipating that he's going to be used in that right-sided defensive role, isn't he? That so usually occupied by Janoy Dinashian. So it'll be interesting to see just when he's unleashed. There are other players waiting to be unleashed as well, Stu. George Hurst came off the bench against Plymouth. He'll want a first start, and we haven't seen Broadhead yet. Due to those muscle tightness issues that he was facing. Sounds like he's good to go this weekend. For each of those two, start or bench?
Hurst, I've got a feeling, will start. I think they've signed him to score some goals and spearhead the attack. He's someone that they've chased for a long time. That's no knock on Freddie Ladapo. I thought had an excellent first half against Plymouth last weekend. You've discussed how Freddie seems to be a more motivated, fired up player from the start of games than he is off the bench. But I think it will be George Hurst that starts this game. Broadhead, I'm really not sure whether he goes with Broadhead or Harness again and eases Broadhead in. Given that he didn't get any minutes last weekend, maybe a substitute appearance for him. What do you reckon?
I'm with you on both of those, and in regard to Ladapo, I think he's going to have to find that fire from the bench. Both of them are. I think they will both start games. They'll both be used from the bench in games, but I feel sure that largely both of those players are going to play a part in every game between now and the end of the season. 5 substitutes and weapons for Kieran McKenna to use. I think they're all going to get used. So the kind of the power-packed nature of this team is back again, and that could be a real weapon for Town. I think the rest of the team probably picks itself, doesn't it? Aside from those issues that we're discussing there. So you got obviously Walton in goal, Wolfen and Burgess at the back, Davis, then Morsey and Evans, Chaplin and Burns. So, any of them up for debate? I'd say not.
I don't think so. I mean, you can never discount Kieran McKenna coming up with some bespoke game plan. We've not seen anything too left field for a little while, but he's not adverse to suddenly going away from home and playing Caden Jackson because he thinks it suits the situation. So you never know. But those players that you've reeled out seem to be pretty inked in on the team sheet at the moment. Which way are you going with Clark? Start, yes or no for this one?
Bench.
Yeah.
Start Tuesday night would be my guess. We talked about the Oxford team being replicated in some games recently, haven't we? I think that the Plymouth starting 11 was the same as the Oxford one from Boxing Day. So I think the framework that we've just put out there will be exactly the same, but with a couple of fresh faces potentially, either from the start or from the bench. Before we give some predictions, Stu, it's time to pause to take a look at some key stats. Right then, Stu, big game for Ipswich this weekend. 3 points would be really handy, given the context of what's come in the last three. Are they going to get them?
Yes.
And what's the score going to be?
I think I'm going to go for a 2-0 Ipswich Town win. I think when they'll get themselves 1-0 up, and then there'll be some fears that they'll let it slip, and there'll be another one of those frustrating draws. But I want to see Ipswich really. I think they'll decide that attack is the best form of defence, and try and go and get that killer second, and hopefully they will.
Love that. I hope that's correct. I've got 2-1 written down on my little notepad. Same outcome, but with a little bit more jeopardy potentially. But hopefully, ultimately, we're both correct.